Hello and welcome back to the course on Tableau. In today's tutorial, we'll look at how to connect to PDF documents from within Tableau. I know the previous lectures were a lot of talking, but today we actually get to doing, and I'm super excited about this topic because now we are able to connect to PDF documents, and this has been personally one of my challenges in the past where I get provided a PDF document and asked to analyze it. Alright, but let's jump into Tableau and have a look at how this works. Now you'll notice the PDF file connection under the normal connection options. So we'll click that and we'll use our NYC Park Crime Stats PDF file. Now immediately you'll notice something different, as when we connect it to our previous files, it opens up with a page picker. Now this page picker allows us to specify either which single pages we want to use or a range of pages, and in our case we'll be using all, but this is super handy if you remember the example we had of when a table was on a specific table, then we can specify that over there. It's also very important to note here that when we're working with page numbers in PDF, and I'll just open up our PDF file, is that Tableau uses the absolute page number reference, and that's what you'll find here in your PDF reader. Do be careful when using the page number on the sheet, as that might differ from the actual absolute page number reference over there, because sometimes in reports you will find that the first few pages are just an introduction or some images, and the actual report only starts on later pages. So do be careful and only focus on that. This will save you a lot of time and problems going forward, trust me. But back to Tableau. So we will just be selecting all of the pages because all of our data is located on all pages. And immediately you'll see that Tableau has interpreted the PDF file and created a whole number of different tables. But let's unpack that quickly. We can see that we've got for each page one or two different tables. And we'll have a closer look, but that's just to indicate that Tableau has interpreted the data on the table, or the data on the page rather, into different possible formats. Let's take page 1, table 1, and have a look what that looks like. And as you can see, this looks familiar to what we had with Excel files earlier, where some of the data is not properly read in. It's also read in some of the header information, and therefore quite a bit messy at the moment. But just like we cleaned our Excel files, we are able to use the data interpreter to clean the PDF document, or let Tableau apply some logic to see if it can clean this file for us. So let's use that. Let's tick the use data interpreter. And as magic, and as we've seen this for Excel files, Tableau is able to identify it correctly and put the right names into the right columns with the correct data. Now what we'll see, we've got all the parks running down, we've got 49 records, and this does look complete. But let's look at what is in table 2 then. So if we have a look at table 2, and still using the data interpreter, you will see that we have much less records. So Tableau's only identified 9 records to be read in, and we know for a fact when we look at our actual PDF file, there's more than 9 lines. There are actually 49, so you can count them, by the way. But Tableau is then saying that in this method number 2, it's only identifying 9 lines. So that definitely does not look correct, and we won't be using the second interpretation. Let's add back the first one. And when always using the data interpreter, it's good to check your data quality or ensure that your data is complete. So let's click on the review results just to make sure there aren't any funnies that happened when Tableau was interpreting this. Now, we've worked with this before, so we'll skip that first part, but what we can see is that Tableau has correctly identified the header in red and all of the lines correctly. And you'll see there's nothing at the bottom, so it's connected to all the lines. And as I mentioned to you, there are basically 49 different lines in our data. Perfect, so we know that is complete and correct. But obviously we don't only want the first page, we want all of the remaining pages as well. So to do that, we'll just hold down the control button and click on the first table only of each page. So ignoring page 2. Because we know that the first method of importing the data is correct. And what you might want to do in the data interpreter is also just to confirm that. I have actually already checked that, so I know that is complete. But yes, we want to add these different tables from these pages. So how do we do that? We don't want to join them. So if we drag them straight into our area over there, it would join them. We actually just want to append them, or rather union them. So how you do that is once it's all selected, you just drag it over into this pane and you hold it close to the page 1, table 1 that's already there. You'll see it opens up the drop area for us. an area to basically drag the tables to union, and make sure that it turns orange so that it is actually dropping it in there and not next to it. So once you drop it in there, Tableau will do a few calculations and it will actually add the number of records. You can see we've got 1,000 there. We can just make it a bit more, make the limit a bit more by just adding a few zeros. And now we end up with 1,155 rows. So we're thinking that this is all of the records, but we will check that. What also has happened is that Tableau has added an F1 field here, and that might seem strange because we know we didn't have that in the first page and first table. But if we scroll down and have a look, we can see that this is simply the park name, where in some cases it didn't correctly identify that. So we can fix that quite simply. We just click on park, click the, while holding Control down, click on F1, and from the drop down select merge mismatched fields. So it would then throw the nulls away and populate them with the correct value that was actually used. So you can see if we scroll through now, all of the parks have names and the F1 has disappeared and was merged in there. I am actually just going to change this. I just want to call it park and then clean up the file a little bit because we don't want some of these fields. So for instance, size we can hide. We don't want any of these fields because we only work with the total, so we can just hide them as well. And I don't care about the table name. And let's give this a proper name. Let's call this incidents because that's what the number of incidents reported. So end up with 3 fields, nicely cleaned file. However, we did see that we've got 1,155 records, and as we don't have a record count, let me just get to the PDF once again. If the fact that we don't have the number of records in our file, but we do know we've got a total line, so we can tie it back to the total line. So back to our Tableau, we can just open up a sheet and simply drag in the incidents into our area over there, and we can see that now our total is 218, which does not seem correct at all. So if we go back to our data source, we know that Tableau might interpret this total line actually also as a record. So let's see if it has done that. Right, at the bottom you can see Tableau has seen that as a normal record, and we know that is not a park, that's just a total. So we can add a data source filter to remove that. So we can just click add by the filters, add another one and go to parks. So we want to basically filter the total line, or the line with the word total in park. So we will just basically say, we will look up for the word total. We will select that and say exclude. This is just if we do refresh our data with new information that and new parks are being added, that we don't include total, or we don't specify specific parks, but we just exclude any totals from there. So we can hit OK once again. We can see our number of rows obviously changed, one less. And now if we go into our sheet, we'll see that we've got 109 records, which is, or rather 109 incidents, which is correct as we know from our PDF. So as you can see, a bit of cleanup is required and a bit of quality checks also when working with PDF files, but actually quite an easy way to connect to PDF files, and this is, for me, excellent. Then to perhaps just sum up, it's important to note that each PDF document that you'll work with will have different cleanup procedures. So there might be additional steps required or even less steps. It's all about how the data is interpreted by Tableau. Also important to note that Tableau will have issues importing hierarchies and headers, subtotals, multiple rows of content that should be interpreted as one, or any color and shading on your PDF document can affect how Tableau interprets the data. So do be careful with that. In the next tutorial, we'll be looking at another file type, which we are able to connect to in Tableau now with a new Tableau connector. Also a very exciting one, in my opinion, in any case. But we will have a look at the file type and how we can best make use of them in Tableau. I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, happy analyzing.